Welcome, everybody, to the Core Podcast. I'm Dan Keller, and today I got a special guest, Stuart Popejoy from the Cadena crew. Stuart, how are you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Daniel?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. There's been a lot of excitement going on around our projects, and I'm really excited about that. So, but before we get into that, let's just give people that may be tuning in for the very first time and finding out about Stuart and Dan a little bit of history of who we are and how we got to the space. So, if you want to go ahead and start that out, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Stuart Popejoy. I'm the founder of Cadena. And we're a blockchain company that spun out of the JP Morgan blockchain group in 2016 with my co-founder, Will Martino. We have the only scalable layer one blockchain in production. The protocol is called Chainweb, but it's the Cadena public blockchain. And it runs our smart contract language, Pact, which is a really great solution for safe, secure, and simple smart contracts. A lot of the inspiration of this, did originally germinate at JP Morgan, where we wanted to try to find a way to bring blockchain technology to the level that we had experience with working with things like trading systems and exchange backbones and things like that. I myself have been in that space before I came into blockchain. I was building exchange and trading systems since 2001 in New York City. Before that, I was in the Bay Area, and my original job was actually at Apple Computer way back in 1992. So been doing technology a long time. But when we got into this project at JP Morgan, it really, I found it really interesting because I've always been very interested in how to make computing accessible to non-power users. One of the things I did at JP Morgan was build a scripting language that allowed sales traders, so these are not technical people, to actually code algorithms to client specifications and roll them out to production in as little as 24 hours.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, and that's, people think that there's no difference between smart contract languages or there's no difference between languages, period. And one of the things that's really important to note is that you can conceive of languages that are safe. You can conceive of something that doesn't allow all sorts of bugs. So that language for JP Morgan was one of them. Obviously, if a sales trader is going to actually write code, that code has to be done in such a way that it can't crash the trading system and can't really do much to, kind of put JP Morgan at any kind of risk. We are able to do that. Likewise with Pact, there's a lot of things in Pact that prevent you by design from hitting bugs that have hit Solidity contracts, things like infinite loops, things like lots of unexplained hidden behavior, all these kinds of things. So, so that's, so the kinds of things we're passionate about are, really bringing the original blockchain vision to what we think is its logical conclusion, which is scalable systems that can grow, smart contracts that are accessible to anybody and understandable by anybody and safe. And now, kind of the most exciting thing is that we're starting to see that come to life in the form of the DEX that is in mainnet on Cadena right now, running in a bounty program called Bounty Swap. That DEX, Cadena Swap, is going to be the first true multi-protocol DEX in crypto, in DeFi. It's going to allow trading, eventually every valuable asset will be on Cadena Swap. It'll be running on all of the chains that make up Cadena, because Cadena is not just one chain, it's 20 chains that are all working together to provide parallelize blockchain operation. And because Pact today works on the Cosmos ecosystem, and we're working with Polkadot to bring Pact up the Polkadot ecosystem, Cadena Swap will leverage that so that you'll be able to be on one DEX that can natively access tokens in Cosmos or in Polkadot Kusama. And there's some interesting things that are going to be happening with liquidity provision in the DEX to make it that that those pools are not fragmented. So, And this is something we'll be drawing directly from experience I have working with the national market system for US equities, where you have NASDAQ, BATS, NYSE, these different exchanges, being able to offer a unified market to the consumer. That's the model we're following for the Cadena swap DEX. So
there's a lot to unpack there. So you have interchain operability, you have scalable proof of work blockchain, which I want to back up and just touch on, because that is actually how I found Cadena is, with the Flux project, was looking at scalable solutions for proof of work, because we really didn't like the way Ethereum was going. And I happened to be doing some research, and I found Cadena, and I reached out to a couple of the people on the team, and I started asking questions. And the next thing you know, we're in the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole is very deep. So, what would you say over that you see being priority? And for those that don't know, I'm Dan Keller. I'm with the Flux project, and we are a decentralized computational network. So Stuart talked a lot about that interchain operability. We work with Cadena to provide infrastructure, and we also are going to natively within ZelCore have a nice trading UI experience for your DEX, which is huge, because I mean, essentially that's one of the downfalls of the DeFi platform is it's cut and paste of all of these different projects. They don't natively get down into a real robust and rich ecosystem. It doesn't get down and feel like somebody could trade on that effectively. Like if I wanted to trade on Uniswap or something like that, the UI is just not there. It opens up many other avenues inside of ZelCore as well. And so what are some of the things like you would like to see within the next month or the next 2 months?
Well, and I think by the time folks are seeing this, our roadmap will be out, so I can leak a few things from our Q2.
I love
roadmap.
it. Hear it here first.
Right. The first is the production launch of Cadena Swap, and there, obviously our KDA token is, going to be one of the leading tokens on the platform, but also we have our partnership with TokenSoft to bring, which is backed by Anchorage, the Anchorage Digital Bank. So market makers are going to be coming into Cadena Swap with wrapped BTC and wrapped Ethereum liquidity. So that's going to be part of the launch, and that's one of the things that's really going to kick things off. So there, that's getting us to finish some of the things we want to finish with the UI, mainly some of the stuff you're talking about, like polish the user experience. It's been great working with ZelCore on the wallet integration, because I think there we're defining an industry-leading experience for working with something like a DEX. If people aren't familiar, when you work with something like Uniswap, one of the things you have to do is authorize the Uniswap application to trade on your behalf. Now, Uniswap is a reputable company. Their software is all open source. And so when you click that authorize button, generally speaking, you can be confident that that software is not going to use that to do a trade you don't want them to do. However, you have basically signed a blank check, something worse than a blank. You've signed a blank check with it's
with no limit.
Blank checks are pretty bad.
Yeah.
So it's about as bad as a blank check, and that's because that's the only way people have learned how to do an on behalf of trade with the ERC20 infrastructure, and that's across Ethereum and any other EVM platform like Binance Chain. You name it, it all works in this kind of trusted mode where you're just hoping that application, remember, it could be a bug. It doesn't have to be malicious.
Yeah,
there could be a bug where it puts an extra zero or it puts a decimal in the wrong place. And now you've lost money and you can't get it back because we're on a blockchain, especially dealing with decentralized exchanges, non-custodial exchanges like Uniswap. Once it's in, and that's it. So it's a fundamentally different model on Cadena Swap and with Pact, where each trade is authorized as it gets signed. So this is something that we worked on with the ZelCore UI so that you can see the actual limit on how much money could leave your KDA account in the signing UI. So
that's huge. I don't think people understand that. And I want to make sure that I highlight that. If you're rewind 2 minutes and really listen to that, because that is unbelievably impactful. And I knew that because I'm part of the project, but I don't think a lot of people understand that. I don't think a lot of people understand the inherent risks that they're taking when they do that. So this is very forward thinking, and we're excited on the ZelCore side to be part of that. And that is a very good point that needs, I think more people need to put emphasis on that.
Well, again, it's like a lot of things in Ethereum right now. I mean, there's a lot to be happy about in the Ethereum ecosystem. And we're, of course we compete with Ethereum, but we're huge fans as well. And we're huge fans of what's happened in DeFi. You can't have an anti-Ethereum attitude. It'd be like having an anti-Bitcoin attitude, even though some people do. That's insane.
Yes.
Why are you in crypto?
Yep, that's exactly right.
These are the people who made the initial innovations, and they're why we're here. So like, it's understandable that Ethereum is having problems because it was the first iteration of smart contracts.
Sure.
And we're very attentive students of Ethereum's design, of the EVM's design, of what Vitalik and Gavin did exactly in those architectures and what they got right, and some of the things they didn't get right. And, and so that's, so for instance, the whole thing of on behalf of trading, that's extremely unsafe. And it comes from, one of the things it comes from is just the fact that the entire architecture was designed around a single sig transaction. And, there's lots of really complicated and unsafe workflows that people put up with on the Ethereum platform because it's where everything's happening. So,
yes.
So it's not to criticize, it's more to say that, this is great and we're here to take it to the next phase. And the next phase is a much safer operating model where it's much, much harder for a malicious piece of software to take your money without you knowing it. But meanwhile, you get all the convenience of not having to actually think about the crypto trade until it's really time to, execute on it.
Execute it, yeah.
And another example of that is things like user onboarding. Like with ZelCore, we're really working to have this great seamless interface with the wallet, and that's really important. And it's also important too because we want to get to the point. One of the things about Cadena is that we have an integrated notion of gas stations, so that a DApp author can subsidize all of, and since we have low fees, this doesn't represent.
Which is fantastic. The gas station is, that is an awesome idea. Could you just go over the gas station model and how that works real quick for our users?
Sure. So the gas, gas is a concept that comes out of Ethereum, and it's an important one for a public smart contract blockchain, which is that you need to charge a fee for how much compute and how much space you're using on the blockchain to prevent people from abusing or denial of service attacks there's a lot of griefing that can go on with the blockchain if you don't have a cost model surrounding smart contracts. And even Bitcoin has this in the form of fees. So, that's a fundamental in an open system. So gas isn't the problem itself. The problem on Ethereum today is one, Ethereum can't scale. So as it gets busier and busier, gas prices
high gas fees, yeah, and they're over the top right now. They're insane. I sent some Ethereum earlier, and I almost wanted to cry. It was bad.
Well, especially when you look at something like NFTs, where there's a model that can't really happen right now with NFTs, which is a small-time artist being able to mint NFTs. Right now that's going to cost them, anywhere from 20 to, $80 a mint. And, if you're selling something like an album or you're selling something like
it's not feasible.
It's just not, you're going to lose money. So that's not going to work. So the sheer cost, which comes from congestion, and that's where you have to have a scalable proof of work system like Ethereum, like Cadena, to address that. Ethereum is proof of work, but not scalable. Cadena is proof of work, but scalable. And so that we can always grow the network to accommodate congestion, which is what drives gas fees in Ethereum. So that's one part. The other part, though, is that as a single signature system, the sender of the transaction in Ethereum is the person who pays the gas. So what Cadena introduced is the ability to intermediate and offer a different account to pay gas, or even a program to pay gas, so that you can even set up a system where you're paying for gas using an entirely different token if you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, of course, that means that the token issuer or the token controller is paying gas in KDA on your behalf. But because we're scalable, that's never going to break the bank. And most importantly, it means one of the biggest problems with Ethereum without a gas payer solution, because there are kind of, they're difficult to administer. They're very creaky systems, but there now is a way to delegate gas payments in Ethereum. But it's, when you consider those costs, you got to think, what business model are you going to have subsidizing those? Because if you have any success, it's going to hit you really hard, and you're going to have thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars in gas payments. So, but nonetheless, they have some kind of crazy proxy-based solution that allows something like a gas payer. Whereas in our system, it's a native, and it allows you to, you can do everything from just straight subsidy, and we have a lot of those types of gas stations. So for instance, you can make a gas station that's just for, you can make, like, so for instance, we have a gas station that's just for Cadena swap, or just for K-Penny, which is the bounty coin. So we can make it that we'll subsidize all transactions as long as they're coming into Cadena swap. But you can go much further than that in terms of, like, you could be debiting from another coin while you pay in KDA. And eventually we get to a place where, people could build a business around this, being able to manage kind of gas payment inventory for businesses and stuff like that. Once things, we're always looking at industrial scale. So industrial scale is where you have, even if gas transactions are a fraction of a cent, you might have enough of those that you actually need to think about how you're going to manage that kind of in bulk.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
So these are the kind of things that we designed the system from the forefront. And it's because our background really is in industrial scale systems and trying to figure out how to bring these to the masses, basically.
It sounds to me like, and in my opinion has been, and I don't hide this, when people talk about DeFi, I have felt about 97% of DeFi has been, froth, or, really not truly development, just cut and copy style infrastructure. But the 3%, let's say the 3% of what really the technology pieces coming out of DeFi, it sounds to me like you along with us and other partners are tapping into those pieces to really kind of truly make DeFi what it's supposed to be. So that's super exciting, and I love to hear about that.
Yeah, and that gets into something I know we want to get to on this call, which is talking about the chain relay, because that's going to be the first chance for KDA holders to participate in a bonding infrastructure. And, that's something that ZelCore and Cadena are working with CoinMetro on, to make it that we can offer this participation in this project that is basically leveraging economic security in KDA to power a decentralized bridge between Ethereum and Cadena, and then later Celo and Cadena, Terra and Cadena. But it's also going to be a way for people to meaningfully participate in the Cadena ecosystem and get a return on their tokens.
So break this down just a little bit more for me, because we hear a lot of these buzzwords just going around: liquidity pooling, liquidity mining, all these different aspects. So tell me this packed structure that you're talking about, kind of dig down. Why is that different than some of these other pieces that we're hearing out there?
They aren't necessarily. I think it's, because Cadena swap is a classic, constant function, constant product, or, automated market making, non-custodial decentralized exchange, just like Uniswap, basically.
Right.
So that is, when some people talk about liquidity mining, that's what they're talking about, is they're talking about
Gotcha.
Providing liquidity on a decentralized exchange, such as Uniswap, such as Cadena swap, because when you do that, every time someone comes in to make a swap, you make a fee, and it's like 0.3% on the swap amount, And that is a way to, put your liquidity, to work, to generate returns, is that by providing liquidity to the system, you get the rewards. So but a lot of the terms, they do sometimes get thrown around to the point where it also involves things like yield farming. And yield farming itself is, a practice that any project, with its own token can get involved in. It's not something we're going to be directly launching, but one thing we are working on is we're working with partners to bring a lending platform to Cadena.
Yeah.
So that so that you can have a similarly custody for non-custodial lending opportunities as another way to take your KDA or other token liquidity and be able to get a return off of it. So when we talk about the relay is really helping to provide a critical piece of infrastructure that will allow us to bring tokens, valuable assets from, say, Ethereum, such as DAI or other stable coins, be able to bring them onto the platform in a decentralized fashion. The bridge software has to have a certain amount of security that can't come natively from the Kadena blockchain, because we're talking about things that happened on Ethereum. Right. So we need people to put up money, put that money at risk, to say, yes, this was a valid transaction. Yes, this was a valid transaction. And by doing so, they risk that if it is fraudulent, the only way they'll ever lose their money is if they do something wrong, is if they post something wrong. And it's a decentralized system, so other people also have to vote to say that that thing happened. They're also bonders. So the point is that they are putting money on the line to say that these things actually happened on the interop platform. And so that we can, in the case of something like DAI, the person has basically transferred DAI to a smart wallet that represents the minting authority on Cadena, and that will mint the wrapped DAI on Cadena into their Cadena wallet. So the point is, that's a lot of risk. Bonding in Cadena is like, to be a bonder, you have to put up 50,000 KDA.
It sounds to me like there's a high risk, high reward there. Not necessarily high risk, right. I would say, but it isn't just a passive model of income. It isn't you just set it and forget it, right? This is more of an active participation in the network, ensuring that these transactions are validated correctly, and
that's what's great. And this is the promise of crypto, right? Is that crypto is where we work together to make exciting things happen, to bring utility to the platform, to bring more, financial options to people on the platform. And because you're providing part of the security in economic form, you get rewarded for that. But it's everybody's working together harmoniously and making money. So it's one of the things that, people are very critical of crypto, and DeFi and things like that. And there's a lot of reasons to be, but I think when you talk about those 3% of projects that are the exciting ones, the reason why they're exciting is that one thing you can do in crypto is you can really bring different communities together and make things happen.
Yes.
And everybody's really psyched to be there because it's in their interests.
Yes.
It's in their economic interest. And that's, I think, very unique to crypto. And it's something that is, it's one of the reasons why I get up in the morning and work on this stuff, is because seeing this stuff happen. It's true also of the partnerships with you guys and with CoinMetro, it's actually kind of the same thing, in the sense that, there's all this like innovation to be done and all these experiences to bring to users. And, and it just sounds like people from the outside look at crypto and they're like, oh, well, you're just dealing with money all day. And it's like, no, we're dealing with a lot more than that.
Yeah, and it is.
What's interesting is money is the way, the cryptocurrencies are the way that we power these things. So it's almost like being both, the builder and the venture funder and the kind of community, organizer, all in one. And it's incredibly exciting.
It harkens back to when Satoshi Nakamoto was looking at 51% of tax, and he said, well, You could participate in a 51% attack. You would have to have X, Y, and Z, but it makes more sense to just mine the asset directly, participate in the network, and be rewarded. It's a lot easier to do that way. And I am a believer. I'm a true believer in this symbiotic relationship between the conventional legacy systems and these new decentralized systems that are working together. I don't think you'll ever see the legacy system go away, but I do think opportunities like this to work with legacy systems and create these hybrid systems that we've talked about. So CoinMetro mentioned it in their write-up specifically about the Cadena and Flux partnership, is that hybrid system where you're utilizing the fundamental structure of DeFi, but also the convenience and the regulatory piece of the centralized exchanges working together. So are you kind of in the camp that you could see that hybrid world? Because you get these maximalists that believe that we're going to destroy the legacy system. It's going to go away. And then you've got in the legacy system, they're like, these guys are just all crazy in crypto. Where do you stand with that?
Oh, I have the opposite position, which is that, well, one, crypto is nowhere, from, having a background in, mega bank finance and working on these massive systems that were trading 800 million shares a day. Just that scripting language I worked on was bringing in 20 million a year revenue for JP Morgan. I can tell you that crypto is tiny still, it's still, it's still in its infancy as a, but that is starting to change right now. I mean, this year,
it seems
mainly
to be,
with
yes.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And, and that's where people also, just some of the crazy things people say about Bitcoin in terms of, oh, this just shows how crazy really it is. It's like, no, this shows how important,
how valuable it is.
This is the message actually reaching the full public, and it's just starting now. Now, what's the downside of that? The downside, it's not the downside, but, we have a lot of systemic insecurity in crypto today, because once you get outside of Ethereum and you start looking at proof of stake systems, especially considering, the various ways people have decided to kind of bend proof of stake systems to, to proof of authority systems and things like that, you have architectures that these days have a significant amount of assets on those platforms. And it's nowhere near as hard to attack those platforms as it is to attack something like Bitcoin or Ethereum proper. It's going to be much, much harder, even Chainweb. It's going to be much, much harder to attack Chainweb than it is when you have a single participant in like a proof of authority system, or if you just have enough money in a proof of stake system. Because the same thing that Satoshi was talking about, where it makes more sense to play along with the system, isn't always going to apply, but it will apply for a while. And the reason why is because there's so much money still coming into crypto.
Right.
Bitcoin shows this. Bitcoin is still a fraction of the market that it's going to be. And Ethereum is still hitting a fraction of the market that it's going to hit, Ether. And so as long as that is true, there are going to be new participants and new money coming into crypto, and they're going to be looking to DeFi for returns. And once returns go out of a particular token or a particular platform, they can just switch to another one and continue to make earnings.
Yeah.
Eventually, though, that's going to change. And then those returns are going to come down, at which point it actually starts becoming profitable to attack some of these platforms. And, like all 51% attack kind of motives, you're going to victimize like an exchange or something. You're going to like find a vulnerability, and what's going to be scary about some of that stuff is that all you will need is money to do that. You'll just need enough money to buy up enough positions in a proof of stake system, and you will be able to attack that system irrevocably. And
do you think there'll be enough time between now and then as these different iterations of the technology continue to grow? Like I remember back in the day when, Flux was, or Zel, it was at Zel at the time when Zel was born, and we were looking at a 51% attack. And the technology from our point for the next 3 years iterated so rapidly that it's less of a concern for us now. But so do you think there's time for us to develop the technology to prevent some of those things, or do you think that's just eminent no matter how?
What I'm talking about more is the fundamental issue that in proof of stake systems, there's no way to tell. And we know this as we roll out our bonding system. One of the reasons why our bonding system has a very high number attached to the bond is to get out of this proportional voting kind of thing that you find in a lot of economically secured systems like comp, maker, proof of stake. And what those systems try to do is that they try to meaningfully decentralize by basically making different roles for people. So you look at something like Polkadot, there's nominators and there's delegates and there's validators and operators and all this kind of thing. And it's important to think of those as different actors, because by having different actors, you end up with a system that's secure because everyone's supposed to be basically checking on each other's work.
Right. Yeah.
So whereas with proof of work, of course, the same thing applies, but the two things are different. One, you can't stop somebody from participating in a proof of work system. All they need is some hardware. And then two, once that population is in place, it's very hard to actually kind of go in and change ownership, just because say you've got a lot of money. Well, you also have to somehow get access to those physical plants.
Yes.
In a proof of stake system, all you need is money.
Yeah.
And then that whole thing where you have different players, that falls apart, because now you can be the nominator, the delegate, you just got to buy enough people out of their positions and it's done. Now you've got the entire system. And what's worse is you can't get out of that once you're in that system.
Yeah, and I think I think we're seeing some of that today in some projects that are out there right now. And you'll hear this argument quite often. People will come in and they'll say, "Hey, when are you going to take Flux to proof of stake or something of that nature?" And I'm like, "No, we're never going to do that. We're proof of work. Unless the technology, you can never project down the road what the next iteration, the next 6 iterations of the technology is. But exactly what you just said. This is why miners are important to us. And this is where I am an ETH supporter. I do support ETH, but I think they're making a tragic move by moving to a proof of stake model and getting rid of their miners. And we're not going to argue about it because we're both proof of work projects. So, hey, you can come mine Flux or KDA, and that's great.
Oh, yeah.
We'd love to have you. But I think what it does is it almost isolates.
Right now, KDA is more, as in recent days, KDA has been more valuable to mine than ETH.
And Flux too. So imagine that.
Nice.
So that's a great thing to have. The thing that I am concerned with ETH about specifically is alienating those individuals, those miners that have been able to produce and develop their platform. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there, and that's a good perspective on that. So, Stuart, what else do you want to share? Anything else about what's happening with the project? Anything you want to get out to the masses? So now, right now, you have pretty much the Flux team and community and the KDA community and other communities. What's something you want to share personally?
Well, I'm really excited about NFT. We're going to be launching an NFT project, we're working with a company, at least one. We're actually talking to more than one, but we're launching at least one NFT, and some of them are actually going to be trying to look at different models within the NFT ecosystem, looking at things like fractional ownership and other ways to, right now NFT, in the large is basically functioning as, no better than the current art market that's out there. And, it's nice to see that market maturing in crypto, but it's not innovating. It's basically doing something. It's taking basically collector-based dynamics and just putting them on a blockchain. And, and I'm glad that's working. It's exciting to see it actually starting to happen. But a lot of the froth right now is, it's no wonder that Sotheby's Sotheby's? I can't remember which auction house, auctioned off an NFT, because that's what they do all day.
Like $7 million or something like that. It was like some ridiculous amount of money.
But that's what they do all day long. And, the art market is not exactly a paragon of fairness or, equitable distribution of income or anything like that.
That's very true.
So, so while it is definitely exciting to see this other, which of course started with CryptoKitties back in 2017, to really see that model, which blockchain, and DeFi are is, perfectly set up to sustain. There's a lot of other things that you can do with smart contracts. Now, and some of the things people, one of the big things people tout about NFTs today is, hey, well, at least every time it changes hands, at least on some of these systems, the original artist will get a cut. There's a lot more you can do in that realm,
Yes.
because, you can think of things beyond like a single person being the person who issues it. You could think of a community being, the issuer and things like that. So you're going to be seeing some exciting stuff coming out of the Cadena ecosystem surrounding NFTs. But then the other thing, of course, is this thing we're talking about gas, right? If it's annoying today that to trade on Uniswap, before you do anything, you have to have an account with Ether in it. Before you even know what crypto is, you have to hold ETH in order to be able to use something like Uniswap.
Yep.
So, where we're going to end up but with NFT, it's even more absurd because, ETH is a pretty nice cryptocurrency. So it's not the worst thing to hold when you're going to go start working with a system like Uniswap.
Yes.
ETH, when you're talking about an NFT, may really not be what you want. It might be something like a stable coin. It might be something else.
Yes.
But, having to deal with the platform token, having to deal with a crypto system at all to start working with these, like, whatever they are, collectibles or, art pieces or things like that. So that's where, we're really excited to be working, with ZelCore wallet and with, CoinMetro and other kind of forward-looking exchange partners. To get a fiat on-ramp and get a, so between the fact that we don't have to do, that we can have free gas, so you're not like, you can start doing transactions before money's changing hands and get a seamless, seamless experience both for the wallet and for being able to come into the system with fiat. You get something that's much more like, the web mobile universe where it's like you come into the system and you deal with money when it's time to deal with money. That's like after you've filled your shopping cart and exactly what you want to do and you've got the money to do it. And now why is it so hard for me to use this system? We're going to make it that it's like, it's a seamless login and it happens when it's supposed to happen, which is when when you've converted that user. You bring in the user with a good experience. And then once they're in is when you get the money.
Yes, exactly. And I think that has been lacking in the space for a very long time. And I think some of the things that ZelCore and Flux and the KDA team and CoinMetro are doing are going to change that. It's going to create a new paradigm. And it's funny because you brought up the NFTs because I was Mr. Anti-NFT when I first found out about it. And I was like, man, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And now our roadmap, it kind of closely aligns probably with what you're doing because we want somebody to create and they want to buy, they want to create an NFT on Cadena and they want to store it in ZelCore and they want to hang out and show it to their buddies on their cell phone. That would be the coolest, right? So, I'm kind of excited about that. One of the other things we're super excited about is Flux will have a parallel asset on the Cadena network, which is a big deal. So April the 10th is going to be our distribution through Fusion, our new parallel asset set up. So we're really super excited about that. And it continues to kind of help us, delve into the space and create these different opportunities. So, yeah, I think I got to agree with you. This has been a great talk and I really do appreciate it, Stuart. I want to thank all of the communities, the Cadena community, the Flux community for all their hard work and what they've done. Because, boy, I'll tell you what, I've been around the block a few times and you've been in the space too, Stuart. We got some of the best communities out there. They really want to get involved. They really want to know what is happening and they want to be participatory. They really want to engage people. So thank you to the communities on both of our behalves. And
I want to amplify that because this isn't like a corporate slogan. I mean, the communities here are instrumental in making these things real. And, and in our case, the community has been critical with some of the things that we've been able to do in the last 3 months. And it's brought value to KDA. It's brought visibility to what we're trying to do with Cadena Swap and the vision we have. It's really helped us, working with ZelCore, in terms of getting like really active community feedback on like, hey, you know, this could be better, having trouble with this kind of interaction. So, you know, yeah, it's a truism in crypto, the communities are everything, but like, I think our communities and the ZelCore community and the way we're all working together is showing that that's not a truism, that that's, you know, that's an operational part of how we go to market with these things. And that's something that makes me very excited. Awesome. And I'm very grateful for. I'm very grateful to the communities as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, then we'll end on that. Stuart, it was great having you on, and thank you very much for joining the core.
Yeah, Daniel, thanks for having me on.